They executed Bumpy Johnson's brother outside the Apollo Theater. 17 bullets, 400 witnesses. 3 weeks later, 18 triggermen, dead inside locked rooms across New York. No gunshots, no witnesses, no evidence. How does a man kill 18 people without firing a single bullet? March 21st, 1955. 10:47 p.m. Willie Johnson pushed through the Apollo Theater doors. $8,300 in a leather satchel. .38 revolver in his coat. Never fired. Never needed to. Outside, Harlem was alive. Neon lights painted the street red and blue. Couples walked arm in arm. Taxis honked. Music spilled from doorways. Normal Saturday night. Willie took 8 steps toward his car. Then the world exploded. First bullet hit his shoulder, spun him sideways. Satchel dropped. Cash scattered across concrete like confetti. Willie stumbled, reached for the gun he would never pull. Second bullet punched through his chest, tore his heart apart. He dropped to his knees, mouth open. No words, lungs filling with blood. Third, fourth, fifth bullets. Different angle, different shooter. Back shots, clustered tight between shoulder blades. Professional grouping. Willie fell forward. Face hit warm pavement. Eyes stayed open. Body twitched twice. Stopped. 17 bullets total. 4 weapons. 4 shooters positioned like compass points. North, south, east, west. 11 seconds of gunfire. Crowd scattered. Women screamed. Men dove behind cars. Glass shattered. Bullets sparked off metal. Then silence. 4 shooters walked to a black Packard, engine already running. Marcus Webb behind the wheel. No panic. No rush. They climbed in. Doors closed. Car rolled south on 7th Avenue. Speed limit. Turn signals. Invisible. 3 minutes until sirens wailed. But the shooters were already crossing the bridge into the Bronx. Weapons would hit the East River before midnight. $500 each. Easy money for easy work. Professional hit. Clean execution. Textbook. Illinois Gordon had delivered the contract personally. Vincent Gigante's man. Gigante wanted Harlem, wanted the numbers rack at Stephanie Street. Claire built over 20 years. Wanted Bumpy Johnson to understand new management was coming, whether he liked it or not. The message was clear. Your brother bleeds in the street while 400 people watch. What are you going to do about it? This was not murder. Murder is personal, private. This was theater, performance, statement written in blood and bullets under neon lights where everyone could see, where everyone would talk, where everyone would understand that Gigante did not negotiate, did not ask permission, did not care about old rules or old respect. He took what he wanted. And if Bumpy's brother stood in the way, Bumpy's brother died in the street like any other obstacle. The Apollo steps were still wet with Willie's blood when word reached Bumpy. 11:15 p.m. He was in Stephanie's office. Cold coffee. Ledgers. Phone rang. Raymond Collins. Voice shaking. Bumpy. Willie. They shot him. Outside the Apollo. He is gone. Bumpy listened. Asked one question. How many shooters? 4. Maybe 5. Professional. They walked away like they were leaving a restaurant. Bumpy hung up, stood slowly, buttoned his jacket, checked the .38 he would not use tonight, would not use tomorrow, would not use at all, because guns make noise. Noise brings attention. Attention brings problems. And Bumpy Johnson did not solve problems with noise. Stephanie crushed her cigarette. 15 years working with Bumpy. Watched him break bones barehanded. Shoot men point blank without blinking. But never heard his voice sound like this. Empty. Cold. The kind of cold that does not burn. It freezes everything it touches. What are you going to do? Bumpy walked to the window, looked down at 7th Avenue. People still walking, still laughing, still living like Willie was not cooling on Apollo Steps 6 blocks north. I'm going to make sure everyone who knew about this stops breathing, not yelling, not threatening, just stating fact, like saying the sky is blue or water is wet. Simple truth delivered in a voice that made Stephanie's hands shake when she reached for another cigarette. Bumpy turned from the window. Call Tommy and Ray. Warehouse on Girard Avenue. 1 hour. Bring shovels and lime. He walked out, door closed like a coffin lid. The order was absolute, final. Do not leave anyone who knew about this breathing. Not the shooters, not the driver, not the scout who watched Willie's routine, not the supplier who provided weapons, not Illinois Gordon who delivered the contract, not the money man who paid, not anyone. 18 people total had knowledge connecting Gigante to Willie's murder. 18 people who thought powerful families meant protection, thought working for Gigante was insurance against consequences. Wrong. They just did not know it yet, but they would learn. 3 weeks. Every single one. Same lesson Willie learned under neon lights while 400 people watched and did nothing. When you shoot a man in the street, you are not just killing him. You are sending a message. You are drawing a line. You are saying, I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of consequence. I am not afraid of war. Gigante drew that line in Willie's blood. Now Bumpy was going to erase everyone who stood on the wrong side of it. The call came at midnight. Bumpy sat alone in his apartment. No lights, no music, just darkness and the sound of his own breathing. Phone rang 3 times before he picked up. It is done. Stephanie's voice. Steady. Professional. Morgue confirmed. Willie died before the ambulance arrived. Bumpy said nothing. The streets are talking. Everyone knows it was Gigante's crew. 4 shooters. Professional hit. Illinois Gordon set it up. Still nothing. Bumpy, what do you want me to do? Silence stretched like razor wire. Then, nothing. Stephanie paused. Nothing. No retaliation, no shooting back, no public statements. Business continues as normal. Willie's funeral is Saturday. Everyone attends. After that, we work. Work on what? I want names. Every person who touched this operation. Shooters, driver, scout, weapons supplier, money man. Everyone who knew Willie was the target. Everyone who knew when and where. Everyone who profited. I want a complete list by tomorrow morning. Stephanie understood immediately. This was not grief. This was calculation. Cold mathematics. How far up the chain? As far as it goes, if Gigante himself ordered it. I want to know. If he just approved it. I want to know. If he only knew about it after. I want to know that too. That kind of information takes time. People to ask. Money to spread around. You have 48 hours. Spend whatever it costs. I want every name, every address, every routine, every weakness. Build me a map of everyone who participated in killing my brother. The line went quiet. Then Stephanie said, You are not going to shoot back. No. You are going to make them disappear. Yes. How? Bumpy stood, walked to the window. Harlem spread below him. Lights. Life. His territory. His responsibility. His brother's blood still wet on Apollo steps. When someone shoots your brother in the street, everyone expects you to shoot back. Start a war. Bodies stacking. Police everywhere. Feds investigating. Everyone loses money. Everyone loses soldiers. War costs. It bleeds resources. It draws attention. It makes everyone weaker. He turned from the window. But if I kill everyone quietly, no shots fired, no witnesses, no evidence, just 18 people who stop showing up to work, stop coming home, stop existing. Then Gigante wakes up one morning and realizes he just lost his entire crew. No war, no retaliation, no way to fight back because there is nothing to fight. Just silence and the understanding that touching Harlem costs more than he can afford to pay. Stephanie lit another cigarette. Hands steady. Had to stay steady. You are going to kill 18 people. I am going to erase 18 people. There is a difference. When you kill someone, the body makes noise. Families ask questions. Police investigate. Media reports. Everyone talks. But when you erase someone, they just vanish. No body. No questions. No investigation. Just empty space where a person used to be. That takes planning. Yes. That takes discipline. Yes. That takes patience. Yes, and I have all three. What I need from you is information. Names, addresses, routines. Give me that and I will handle the rest. Stephanie crushed her cigarette. When do you start? As soon as you give me the list. First target disappears within 24 hours of receiving your information. Last target disappears exactly 3 weeks after Willie died. Military precision. No mistakes. By the time Gigante understands what is happening, it will be too late to stop it. He will come after you. No, he will not. Because coming after me means losing more soldiers, means starting a war he cannot win, means bleeding money and men and reputation until the commission decides he is more trouble than he is worth. Gigante is smart, brutal but smart. He will do the math. He will cut his losses. He will walk away. You sound certain. I am certain, because I am not giving him a choice. I am not giving him a target to shoot at. I am not giving him a war to fight. I am just going to quietly remove every person who participated in Willie's murder. And when I am done, Harlem will still be standing, still operating, still making money. While Gigante explains to his bosses why he lost 18 soldiers for nothing. Power does not shout. Power does not threaten. Power does not need to announce itself. Real power works in silence, moves in darkness, strikes without warning, and leaves no evidence except the empty spaces where enemies used to stand. Bumpy Johnson understood this better than anyone in New York. Willie was dead. That could not be changed. But Willie's death could be used, could be turned into a lesson so brutal and complete that nobody would ever test Harlem again. Not Gigante, not any other family, not anyone. Get me that list, Bumpy said, and Stephanie. Nobody hears about this. Not your crew, not your runners, not anyone. This stays between us until it is done. Understood. Bumpy hung up, sat back down in darkness, waited for morning, waited for the list that would become a death warrant for 18 men who thought killing Willie Johnson was good business. They were wrong, and wrong in this world gets you erased. 40 hours after Willie died, Stephanie delivered the list. 18 names typed on clean white paper, addresses, occupations, daily routines, weaknesses, a roadmap to 18 deaths. Bumpy read it twice, memorized every detail, then burned the paper in his kitchen sink. Watched flames consume names that would soon be consumed by something worse than fire. Silence. Complete erasure. The list broke down like this: 4 shooters, the triggermen, Antonio Russo, James Lee, Carlos Mendez, Bobby Flynn, experienced, professional. Gigante's best. They pulled triggers while Willie bled, $500 each for 11 seconds of work. Marcus Webb, the driver, kept the engine running, planned the escape route, got them to the Bronx before sirens stopped wailing. $500 for staying calm and driving the speed limit. David Chen, the scout, watched Apollo Theater for 3 days, timed Willie's exits, noted police patrols, mapped every variable. $300 for homework. Johnny Price, the lookout, stood on 125th Street watching for cops, ready to signal if the law showed early. $200 for standing on a corner pretending to smoke cigarettes. Tommy Ruiz, weapons supplier, provided 4 untraceable pistols from his basement armory in the Bronx. Cleaned, loaded, ready. $1,000 for hardware. Illinois Gordon, the architect, delivered Gigante's contract, recruited the crew, coordinated logistics, took his cut off the top. $2,000 for project management. Vincent Natale, the money man, collected payment from Gigante, distributed cash to the crew, kept records nobody was supposed to see. $1,000 for accounting. 3 enforcers, Gigante's muscle, made sure nobody talked, made sure everyone understood the consequences of loose lips. Frank DeLuca, Ray Costello, Mike Romano, $1,000 each for intimidation insurance. 2 cleaners. Johnny Price lived alone in a tenement. Thin walls. Nobody who would notice if he stopped coming home. Each man had a weakness, a pattern. A moment of vulnerability when they were alone, unguarded, available. Bumpy mapped 18 lives like a general mapping enemy positions. Not for invasion, for elimination. Quick, clean. Surgical strikes that would remove targets without alerting the others. The brilliant strategy none of them knew each other existed. The shooters knew about the driver, but did not know about the scout. The scout knew about the lookout, but did not know about the weapons supplier. Illinois Gordon knew everyone, but nobody knew who else was on the list besides their immediate circle. Isolation was their weakness, and Bumpy would exploit it. If all 18 disappeared at once, Gigante would know, would prepare, would fortify, would start a war. But if they disappeared slowly, one by one, different locations, different methods, different days, by the time anyone connected the disappearance, it would be too late. The pattern would only become visible after everyone was already gone. 3 weeks, 18 targets. Bumpy divided them into 3 groups. Week 1, the bottom tier. Cleaners, lookouts, intermediaries. People Gigante would not miss immediately. Week 2, the middle tier. Weapons suppliers, money men, enforcers, people whose absence would start raising questions. Week 3, the top tier. Shooters, driver, scout, Illinois Gordon, the core crew, the ones Gigante would notice. By the time Gigante realized his entire operation was vanishing, 15 people would already be dead. Too late to protect the last 3. Too late to retaliate. Too late to do anything except count bodies and calculate cost. Bumpy closed the notebook, called Tommy Rivera. "I have work for you. Bring your crew. Warehouse on Girard Avenue. 2 hours. And Tommy, bring shovels. Lots of shovels." "How many we talking about? 18 graves worth?" Silence on the line. Then, understood. This was not rage, not revenge, not emotion. This was accounting. A debt calculation. Willie's life was worth 18 lives. Not because Willie was worth more, but because the lesson being taught required complete erasure. Partial measures would invite more attacks. Complete measures would establish permanent boundaries. In this world, every role bleeds. Does not matter if you pulled the trigger or just stood on a corner watching for police. Does not matter if you supplied guns or just drove a car. In a murder, everyone participates, everyone profits, everyone pays. And payment in Bumpy Johnson's Harlem was not measured in money. It was measured in breathing. You participated in killing Willie. Now you stop breathing. Simple mathematics. Cold calculation. 18 men went to sleep that night thinking they were safe, thinking Gigante's reputation protected them, thinking being small players meant being invisible. Wrong on every count. Bumpy Johnson had their names, their addresses, their routines, their weaknesses. He had mapped their entire existence onto paper and memorized it like scripture. Now he was coming for them, not with guns, not with violence, not with anything they could fight or run from. He was coming with patience, with planning, with the kind of cold calculation that turns 18 lives into 18 lessons about what happens when you cross the wrong man in the wrong city at the wrong time. The hunt was beginning, and the prey did not even know they were already marked for death. Day 7. The bodies kept turning up. Harlem whispered. The Bronx watched. Everyone assumed they understood what was happening. Revenge. Pure. Simple. A brother for 18 enemies. They were wrong. Stephanie St. Claire sat across from Bumpy in the back office. Smoke from her cigarette curled toward the ceiling. She had watched him orchestrate this for a week. Watched him mark names, watch locations, send crews out into the night. She thought she understood him. 15 years. She thought she knew. "You loved Willie," she said. Not a question. A statement. Bumpy looked up from his notebook. His face showed nothing. "I did." "So this is about family." Bumpy closed the notebook, set down his pen, leaned back in his chair. "No." Stephanie's cigarette stopped halfway to her mouth. "Then what is this about?" Bumpy stood, walked to the window, looked down at 7th Avenue. "Mathematics." He turned to face her. "If I kill 4 shooters, Gigante sends 8 more. If I kill 8, he sends 16. We fight for months. Bodies stack. Police get involved. Feds get involved. Everyone loses money. Everyone loses territory. Everyone bleeds until someone runs out of soldiers or someone makes peace." He walked back to the desk, put both hands flat on the surface, leaned forward. "But if I kill everyone who touched it, everyone who knew about it, everyone who profited from it, if I erase them so completely that Gigante wakes up every morning counting how many men he lost and realizing he cannot afford to lose that many again, then it stops. No war, no retaliation, just silence, and the understanding that Harlem costs more than he can pay." Stephanie crushed her cigarette, lit another immediately. "You are not doing this for Willie." "I am doing this because Willie was murdered, but I am not doing it because I am angry. I am doing it because anger makes mistakes. Anger starts wars that never end. This is not anger. This is a lesson. The most expensive lesson Vincent Gigante will ever receive." He sat back down, opened the notebook again. "Willie is dead. I cannot bring him back, but I can make sure his death means something. I can make sure that 10 years from now, when some young crew thinks about moving on Harlem, they remember the 18 men who tried it and disappeared. They remember that taking Harlem is easy, but keeping it is impossible because the cost is not measured in bullets. It is measured in every person you know vanishing one by one until you are the last name on a list you cannot see coming." Stephanie exhaled smoke slowly. "You are protecting the structure. I am protecting what we built, the numbers, the territory, the respect. Willie was part of that structure. They killed him because they thought breaking one piece would collapse everything. I am showing them that breaking one piece costs you everything. Your crew, your reputation, your ability to operate without looking over your shoulder every second of every day." He looked at her with eyes that had gone somewhere cold, somewhere calculated. "In 3 weeks, Gigante will have lost 18 men. No war, no shootouts, no headlines, just 18 men who stopped coming to work. And every other family in New York will look at that and ask themselves if Harlem is worth it. The answer will be no. Not because we are the strongest, but because we are the most expensive. Stephanie leaned back, studied him. You turned grief into strategy. I turned grief into insurance. Willie is dead. I cannot change that. But I can make sure his death protects everyone who comes after him. Every numbers runner, every enforcer, every person who works for us and trusts us to keep them safe. This is not about Willie anymore. This is about making Harlem untouchable. The realization settled in the room like smoke. This was never about revenge. Revenge is personal, emotional, temporary. This was about power, permanent power, the kind that outlasts the man who built it. Bumpy Johnson was not grieving. He was building a wall around Harlem made of 18 bodies and the memory of what happened to anyone who tried to climb over it. You are the most dangerous kind of man, Stephanie said quietly. What kind is that? The kind who can turn pain into mathematics, who can watch his brother bleed out and start calculating how to make that death work for him instead of against him. Bumpy did not disagree, did not defend, just went back to his notebook, back to the names, back to the schedule that would run for 2 more weeks until every single person who thought Willie Johnson was worth $2,500 learned exactly how wrong they were. Willie was dead, but what Bumpy was protecting was alive. The structure, the system, the understanding that Harlem operated under rules that could not be broken without consequences that made death look merciful by comparison. This was not a man who lost control. This was a man who understood that the most dangerous thing you can do to an enemy is not kill them in rage. It is kill them with precision, with planning, with the kind of cold calculation that makes everyone watching understand that crossing you is not just dangerous, it is mathematically unsound. A losing equation that ends the same way every single time. The most dangerous man is not the one who fights with emotion. It is the one who fights with spreadsheets, who can watch his world burn and start drawing blueprints for what comes next, who understands that power is not about winning today. It is about making sure nobody tries to fight you tomorrow. Bumpy Johnson turned grief into strategy, and that strategy would protect Harlem longer than any bullet ever could. 18 targets, 3 weeks, 5 boroughs. One rule, no pattern. Tommy Rivera led the first crew. 3 men, no badges, no uniforms. Nothing that connected them to Bumpy or Stephanie or any official operation. They drove unmarked cars, wore regular clothes, looked like plumbers, electricians, delivery men, invisible. Their job was not to kill. Their job was to collect. Target 1, Marcus Webb, the driver, Gigante's man who kept the engine running while Willie bled on Apollo steps. They found him Thursday night outside his girlfriend's apartment in the Bronx. Marcus was walking to his car, keys in hand, thinking about the $100 burning a hole in his pocket. The easy money, the clean getaway. Tommy stepped out from between parked cars. Marcus Webb. Marcus turned, saw 3 men, nobody he recognized. Who was asking? Someone who wants to talk. 5 minutes, that is all. Marcus's hand went to his waistband where he kept a knife. I do not know you. I do not have conversations with people I do not know. Tommy smiled. No threat, no aggression. Your choice, 5 minutes of conversation, or we come back tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, until you decide 5 minutes is easier than looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Marcus looked at the 3 men, looked at his girlfriend's window 3 floors up, looked at his car, calculated odds. 5 minutes, then I walk. 5 minutes, Tommy agreed. They drove to a warehouse in Hunts Point, abandoned, windows boarded, the kind of place where screaming does not reach anyone. But Tommy was not planning to make Marcus scream. Not yet. Inside, there was a room. Small. Door with a lock. Tommy opened it. We need you to wait here. 20 minutes. Someone wants to talk to you. Someone important. You wait. You talk. You walk out. Simple. Marcus looked at the room, looked at Tommy. And if I say no, then we do this the hard way. We grab you. We drag you. We tie you up and throw you in anyway. But that makes noise. That leaves marks. That makes everything complicated. Or you walk in yourself. 20 minutes. You talk to whoever shows up. You walk out. Your choice. Marcus stood there, calculating. The room was small but not threatening. No weapons visible. No blood. Just an empty room with a chair and a door that locked. 20 minutes. Talk. Walk out. Easy money for keeping his mouth shut. He stepped inside. Tommy closed the door, locked it from the outside. Walked away. Nobody was coming to talk. 20 minutes would turn into 20 hours, then 40 hours. Then however long it took for Marcus Webb to stop breathing. This was the pattern. 18 times. Different locations, different crews. Same setup. Target 2. Tommy Ruiz, gun supplier. Found him at his bar on Arthur Avenue. Closing time. Last customer gone. Ruiz was counting the register. 3 men walked in. Said they needed to buy something off the books. Big purchase. Good money. But not here. Too public. They had a warehouse. Private. Safe. Could he come take a look? Ruiz followed them. Walked into a room thinking he was about to make a sale. Door closed behind him. Lock turned. Silence. Target 3. David Chen. The scout. Owed money to bookies. One bookie called. Said debts were forgiven if he showed up to a meeting. Proof he was serious about paying. Just show up. Sign some papers. Walk away clean. Chen showed up. Walked into a room. Door locked. No bookie. No papers. Just walls and a ceiling and a floor and air that would not last. 18 targets. 18 conversations. 18 decisions to walk into rooms because walking in seemed easier than refusing. Because refusing meant questions, meant attention, meant dealing with problems that seemed bigger than 20 minutes in a locked room. None of them were tied. None were beaten. None were forced. They walked in themselves because they thought they had options, thought they could talk their way out, thought someone was coming to negotiate. Nobody was coming. The genius of Bumpy's plan was not the violence. It was the absence of violence. No gunshots meant no police reports. No bodies in the street meant no witnesses. No visible wounds meant no evidence that murder had occurred until days later, when someone finally found the bodies, and by then the trail was ice cold. 18 men disappeared over 3 weeks. Different days, different times, different locations. No pattern except the silence. The absolute silence that follows when someone realizes too late that the conversation they agreed to was never a conversation at all. It was a coffin they walked into themselves. Target 18, Illinois. Gordon, the architect, the man who delivered the contract, found him in a diner in Greenwich Village. 2 men sat down across from him. Said Gigante wanted to see him. Important meeting. Good news about a promotion. Car waiting outside. Gordon finished his coffee, walked to the car, got in. They drove to a building he did not recognize, walked him inside, showed him a room, said wait here. 5 minutes. Boss is coming. Gordon waited. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. He tried the door. Locked. Shouted. No answer. Pounded. Nothing. Then understood. Then panicked. Then died. Like 17 others before him. When your enemy does not need to force you. When you walk into your own execution because it seems reasonable, because it seems safe, because it seems like just another day in a business where conversations happen in back rooms and locked doors are normal. That is when you know you have already lost. Bumpy Johnson did not hunt 18 men. He invited them, and every single one accepted the invitation, because refusing seemed more dangerous than agreeing. That is power. Real power. The kind that does not need guns or threats or violence. Just a room, a lock, and the victim's own decision to walk inside. The rooms were not random. Nothing about this was random. Bumpy Johnson studied architecture, studied mathematics, studied how long a human being can survive in a sealed space based on volume, oxygen content, metabolic rate, and panic response. 12 feet by 8 feet, 7-foot ceiling, 672 cubic feet of air, one human male average weight 170 pounds, breathing rate at rest 12 to 16 breaths per minute, breathing rate during panic 30 to 40 breaths per minute, time until oxygen drops below sustainable levels 6 to 8 hours if calm, 2 to 3 hours if panicking. The rooms were designed to kill, not quickly, slowly, with mathematical precision. Each location was chosen for isolation: basements in abandoned buildings, storage units in facilities that closed at 6 p.m. and did not reopen until 8 a.m., warehouses in industrial zones where nobody worked night shifts, places where screaming would echo against concrete walls and die without reaching human ears. The doors were solid, metal or thick wood, locks that could not be picked from inside, no windows, no ventilation, no light except what seeped under the door until that too disappeared when someone turned off the building lights and went home for the night. Marcus Webb was the first to understand. He had been in the room 20 minutes when he tried the door. Locked. He knocked. No answer. Knocked louder. Nothing. Started pounding. Shouting, "Hey, someone let me out." I waited. Where is the person I am supposed to talk to? Silence. He pounded harder. This is not funny. Let me out. More silence. Then realization crept in like cold water rising. Nobody was coming. This was not a conversation. This was not a misunderstanding. This was intentional. Someone locked him in here and walked away knowing exactly what would happen next. Marcus tried to stay calm, told himself someone would come. This was a mistake, a test, something. He sat on the floor, controlled his breathing, waited. 1 hour passed, then 2. The air felt thinner. Or maybe that was his imagination. Hard to tell. He stood up, paced. 5 steps, 1 direction, 5 steps back. The walls closed in, or stayed the same. Hard to tell in the dark. 3 hours. His chest felt tight. Breathing came harder. Or maybe that was panic. Hard to separate physical reality from mental terror when both feed each other in a locked room with no escape. He went back to the door, pounded with both fists, screamed until his voice cracked. "Let me out. Please, I will do anything. I will pay. I will leave town. Just let me out." The door did not answer. Doors never do. 4 hours. Marcus's hands were bleeding from pounding. His throat was raw from screaming. His lungs burned with every breath. The air tasted stale, thick, like breathing through wet cloth. He tried to think, calculate. How much air was in here? How long could he survive? But panic makes mathematics impossible. Numbers scatter. Logic fails. All that remains is fear. 5 hours. He clawed at the door, fingernails tearing, splinters embedding in flesh. Pain did not matter. Only escape mattered. But escape was not possible. The door would not break. The walls would not crack. The ceiling would not collapse. 6 hours. Marcus stopped pounding, stopped screaming, sat with his back against the wall, breathing shallow, each breath a little harder than the last, each lungful giving a little less oxygen and a little more carbon dioxide. He thought about his girlfriend, 3 floors up in her apartment, probably asleep, not knowing he was dying 6 miles away in a locked room because he drove a car for $500. 7 hours. His vision blurred. Chest felt like someone sitting on it. He tried to stand. Could not. Legs would not work. He slumped sideways, cheek against cold concrete. 8 hours. Marcus Webb stopped breathing. The same scene played 18 times. Different men, different rooms, same mathematical conclusion. Tommy Ruiz lasted longer. He stayed calm for the first 4 hours. Controlled breathing, conserved oxygen. But calm only delays the inevitable. By hour 6, he was screaming. By hour 8, he was unconscious. By hour 10, he was dead. David Chen panicked immediately, started hyperventilating within the first hour. Burned through oxygen twice as fast as Marcus. Dead in 4 hours. The fastest death of all 18. Panic killed him faster than suffocation. Illinois Gordon tried to break down the door, threw his body against it repeatedly. Bruised ribs, dislocated shoulder. Exhausted himself within 2 hours. Spent the next 6 hours lying on the floor, gasping for air that was not there anymore. Dead by hour 8. The brutal physics of suffocation: the more you panic, the faster you die. The harder you fight, the quicker the oxygen runs out. The people who died fastest were the ones who fought hardest. The ones who died slowest were the ones who accepted their fate and tried to breathe calmly until breathing stopped. But calm or panicked, the result was identical. 18 men in 18 rooms, all dead, all killed by the same weapon, time, and mathematics, and the cold calculation that a human body needs oxygen to survive, and a sealed room only contains so much before it runs out. Bumpy Johnson never entered those rooms, never watched them die, never heard them scream. He did not need to be there. He had designed the rooms, done the math, knew exactly how long each man would last based on size and temperament and panic response. He was not present, but he was everywhere, in the dimensions of the rooms, in the thickness of the doors, in the isolation of the locations, in every breath that came a little harder than the last until breathing stopped being possible. The rooms killed them, but Bumpy built the rooms. And the most terrifying truth of all, panic killed faster than suffocation. The men who beat on doors died quicker than the men who sat still. Fear consumed oxygen faster than calm ever could. When you are trapped, fighting makes it worse, but not fighting feels like giving up. So you fight, you scream, you pound, you burn through air that cannot be replaced, and you die faster than the man who accepted his fate and breathed slowly until there was nothing left to breathe. Panic is a weapon, more effective than knives, more deadly than bullets, because panic makes you your own executioner, makes you consume the one resource you need to survive until there is none left, and your body shuts down, and you become another statistic in Bumpy Johnson's mathematics. 18 rooms. 18 bodies, 18 lessons in how terror kills faster than any enemy ever could. April 14th, 3 weeks after Willie Johnson bled out on Apollo steps. Vincent Gigante sat in his social club on Sullivan Street drinking espresso that had gone cold an hour ago. The room smelled like cigar smoke and fear. 18 men, gone. No bodies, no witnesses. No explanations. Gigante had sent people looking, checked hospitals, checked morgues, checked every bar and brothel and gambling den where his crew normally operated. Nothing. 18 men vanished like smoke, like they never existed. Then the package arrived. Brown paper, no return address, delivered by a kid who said a man gave him $5 to drop it off. The kid could not describe the man. Average height, average build, Average everything. Invisible. Gigante opened the package. Inside 18 photographs. Marcus Webb. Dead. Locked room. Face frozen in final terror. Eyes wide. Mouth open. Hands bloody from clawing. Tommy Ruiz. Dead, different room. Same expression. Same desperate evidence of final hours spent understanding what was happening and being unable to stop it. David Chen. Illinois Gordon. Johnny Price. All the shooters. The cleaners. The money men. Every single person who touched Willie Johnson's murder. All dead. All photographed. All sent to Gigante as proof. No note. No threat. No demands. Just photographs of what happens when you cross Bumpy Johnson. Gigante stared at the images spread across his desk. 18 men. 18 executions. Not a single bullet fired. Not a single witness. Not a single piece of evidence that would hold up in court. Just bodies in locked rooms and the understanding that this was a message written in corpses. Frank Costello walked in without knocking, looked at the photographs, picked one up, studied it, set it down. How many? 18. All yours, all mine. Costello lit a cigarette. You started a war. I sent a message. Willie Johnson was protecting St. Clair's money. We hit him to show Harlem who runs things now, and Bumpy Johnson responded by erasing your entire crew. Costello gestured at the photographs. This is not a war. Wars have battles. This is extermination. Calculated. Professional. The kind of operation that takes planning and resources and connections you clearly underestimated. Gigante's jaw clenched. So what do you want me to do? Let him kill 18 of my men and do nothing? I want you to understand mathematics. Costello sat down, tapped ash into a tray. You lost 18 men. Bumpy lost one brother. You are down 18 soldiers. He is down one. You want to retaliate? Fine, send another crew. Lose another 18 men. Then another, until you run out of soldiers, or you run out of money, or you wake up one morning and realize you are fighting a war you cannot win because the other side is willing to kill everyone you send and never fire a single shot that brings police attention. So I do nothing. You do nothing. You write off Harlem. You take your loss. You move on, because the alternative is bleeding men and money and reputation until the commission decides you are more trouble than you are worth and solves the Gigante problem the same way Bumpy solved the Willie problem. Gigante stood, walked to the window, stared at Sullivan Street. He made me look weak. He made you look expensive. There is a difference. Weak means people attack you. Expensive means people avoid you because the cost is not worth the territory. Costello crushed his cigarette. Bumpy Johnson just taught everyone in New York that Harlem costs 18 men per incident. Nobody can afford that. Not you. Not me. Not anyone in this city. The commission knows. The commission is why I am here. They saw the photographs. They did the math. They made a decision. Costello stood, walked to the door, stopped. Harlem is off limits, permanently. You touch it again. You answer to us. Not Bumpy. Us. Gigante turned from the window. And if I say no, Costello smiled without warmth. Then I will be back in a week with your photograph, and someone else will be sitting in your chair learning the same lesson you are learning right now. That certain territories cost more than they are worth. That certain men cannot be pushed without pushing back so hard you disappear. That power is not about how many men you have. It is about how many men you are willing to lose. He left. Door closed. Gigante stood alone with 18 photographs spread across his desk like a poker hand, showing nothing but dead cards. He could retaliate. Send 20 men, 40 men. Start a war that would burn Harlem to the ground. But wars cost money. Wars bring attention. Wars end with federal investigations and indictments, and everyone losing. Or he could accept the loss. 18 men for one lesson. Expensive, but cheaper than the alternative. Gigante gathered the photographs, put them in the bottom drawer of his desk, locked it, never looked at them again, never spoke Willie Johnson's name again, never sent another crew into Harlem again. Not because he was afraid, because he was smart, because he understood that Bumpy Johnson had just set a precedent that would outlast both of them, that Harlem was not for sale, not for $500 per shooter, not for $5,000, not for any price anyone could afford to pay. The photographs were proof, not of murder, of cost, of what happens when you miscalculate, when you think taking territory is the same as keeping it, when you forget that real power is not measured in how hard you can hit. It is measured in how hard you can make someone regret hitting you first. When a rule gets proven with 18 bodies, it does not need repeating. Everyone who matters sees the photographs, reads the report, does the math, comes to the same conclusion. Harlem is expensive. Too expensive. Stay out. Willie Johnson was buried on March 26th, 5 days after he died. Long enough for the investigation to close. Long enough for the medical examiner to release the body. Long enough for Bumpy to finish what he started. The funeral was at Abyssinian Baptist Church, 128th Street. Reverend Powell presiding. 200 people attended. Family, friends, numbers runners, enforcers. Everyone who knew Willie, everyone who worked with him, everyone who understood that this funeral was not just about Willie. It was about Harlem burying one of its own. Bumpy sat in the front row. Black suit, black tie, face like carved stone. He did not cry, did not speak, just sat with his hands folded in his lap while Reverend Powell talked about Willie's life, his family, his dedication, his loyalty. No mention of the 18 men. No mention of the locked rooms. No mention of the 3 weeks that changed everything. The funeral was about Willie. Only Willie. The rest was business. And business does not get discussed at funerals. After the service, Willie was buried at Woodlawn Cemetery. Small plot, simple headstone. Name, dates, nothing else. No epitaph about revenge or justice or lessons taught. Just a name and the years he lived. Bumpy stood at the grave until everyone else left. Stood there alone in the April rain that started falling as the last shovel of dirt covered the coffin. Stood there until Stephanie walked up beside him and said, "It is done." Yes. Gigante received the photographs. Good. The commission called off any retaliation. Harlem is off limits. Bumpy nodded once. Then Willie did not die for nothing. They walked back to the car. Drove to Stephanie's office, sat in silence while rain hammered the windows, and Harlem went about its business like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The rules were different now. The boundaries were clearer. The cost of crossing them was proven beyond doubt. No celebration, no victory speeches, no announcements about what had been done or why it had been necessary. Just silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any words. The 18 names were never mentioned again. Not in Stephanie's office. Not in the Cotton Club. Not in any bar or speakeasy or numbers joint across Harlem. They became unpeople. Erased not just from life but from memory. Like they never existed. Like they never made the mistake of thinking Willie Johnson was an acceptable target. But people knew. They always know. Word spreads without anyone speaking it. Whispers in dark corners. Glances exchanged over drinks. The understanding that passes between people who live in worlds where official rules do not apply, and unofficial rules determine who lives and who disappears. Within a month, 3 other families who had been eyeing Harlem quietly withdrew. No announcements. No explanations. They just stopped making inquiries about territory, stopped sending scouts, stopped testing boundaries. They had seen what happened to Gigante's crew, done the math, reached the conclusion that Harlem was not worth 18 soldiers. Lucky Luciano called Bumpy directly. A courtesy call. Respect from one boss to another. You made your point. Clean work. No unnecessary noise. The commission appreciates professionals. Bumpy said, Harlem is not for sale. Understood. Nobody will touch it. Good. The call ended. No threats. No promises. Just understanding between men who knew how power actually worked. Who knew that real power is not about fighting wars. It is about making wars unnecessary. Frank Costello sent a wreath to Willie's grave. 6 feet tall. Expensive flowers. Card that read, A man of honor, from men who understand honor. Carlo Gambino sent word through intermediaries that the Gambino family would recognize Harlem's independence. Would not interfere. Would not challenge. Would treat Bumpy Johnson as an equal rather than a subordinate. This was the real victory. Not 18 dead men, but recognition. Legitimacy. The understanding from every family in New York that Harlem was sovereign territory, controlled by a man who had proven he could defend it without starting wars that damaged everyone's business. The strong did not attack. They withdrew. Because they understood the message. Because they were smart enough to read the lesson written in 18 bodies and 18 locked rooms. Real power is not making your enemies fight you. Real power is making your enemies choose not to fight at all, making them calculate the cost and decide that avoiding you is cheaper than challenging you. Gigante could have retaliated, could have sent 40 men, 80 men, started a war that would have burned Harlem to the ground. But he did not, because he was smart. Because he understood that wars are expensive and peace is profitable, and Bumpy Johnson had just made war with Harlem more expensive than anyone could afford. So he withdrew, quietly. No announcements, just stopped. Stopped planning, stopped scheming, stopped thinking about Harlem as territory that could be taken. And every other boss in New York watched and learned and made the same choice. Not because they were afraid, because they were smart. True power is when the other side quits before the fight starts. When they calculate the odds and walk away. When they understand that winning is possible, but the cost of winning is higher than the value of the prize. Willie was buried. 18 men were erased from memory. Harlem continued operating. Numbers ran. Money flowed. Life went on. But the rules were different now. Clearer. Proven. And nobody forgot. 30 years later. 1985. Harlem had changed. Buildings renovated. Streets cleaned up. New generation running old operations. But certain rules remained unchanged. Nobody touched Harlem. Not Gigante. Not Gambino. Not Lucchese or Genovese or Bonanno. 5 families. Hundreds of soldiers. Millions of dollars in annual revenue. And not one of them made a serious move on Harlem after Willie Johnson died in 1955. The story became legend. Old-timers told it to young soldiers coming up, told it as a warning, a lesson about knowing when to push and when to walk away, about understanding that some territories cost more than they are worth, that some men cannot be challenged without losing more than you can afford to lose. Detective Murphy retired in 1973, 18 years after finding the first body, 18 years after closing a case that was never really solved. He kept the files, kept them in a box in his basement, sometimes late at night after too much whiskey. He would open the box and look at the photographs. 18 men, 18 locked rooms, 18 deaths that changed everything. He never spoke about it publicly, never gave interviews, never wrote the book a publisher offered him $5,000 to write. Because some stories are not meant to be told. Some lessons are meant to be understood by the people who need to understand them and ignored by everyone else. What happened in 1955 was not crime, it was order. the establishment of boundaries, the proof that certain rules existed, and breaking those rules had consequences that made death look merciful. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968. Heart attack. Wells Restaurant, 7th Avenue. Collapsed at his table. Dead before the ambulance arrived. He was 62 years old, had controlled Harlem for over 30 years, had built an empire not on violence, but on the memory of violence. On 18 bodies and the understanding that he could do it again, if necessary. His funeral drew thousands. Every family in New York sent representatives. Every boss paid respects. Not because they liked him, because they respected him. Because he had proven something they all understood, that real power is not about how hard you can hit. It is about making people understand hitting you is not worth the cost. Stephanie St. Clair outlived him by 3 years. Died in 1971. Retired. Wealthy. Respected. The numbers racket she built continued operating long after she was gone. Continued operating because Bumpy had protected it with 18 bodies and a precedent that lasted generations. The question that remained after all these years. The question people still debated in quiet corners of bars and social clubs and places where old men told stories about how things used to be. When family gets touched, what is the right response? Shoot first. Start a war that brings police and feds and attention that ruins everyone's business. Or wait, plan, calculate, execute so precisely that you win without fighting, that you establish rules without needing to prove them again. Willie Johnson was murdered. March 21st, 1955. 17 bullets. Apollo Theater. Hundreds watched. $500 per shooter. Easy money for easy work. 3 weeks later, 18 men were dead. No bullets fired. No war started. No retaliation needed. Just silence. Bodies. Precedent. Bumpy Johnson did not shoot first. He shot last. Shot so completely that nobody needed to shoot again. He turned his brother's death into insurance that protected Harlem for 30 years. Turned grief into strategy. Turned rage into mathematics. Some people called him a monster. Some called him a genius. Some called him both. But everyone agreed on one thing. Bumpy Johnson understood power better than anyone in New York. Understood that the most dangerous weapon is not the gun you carry. It is the reputation you build, the memory you create, the lesson you teach so thoroughly that it never needs repeating. Willie died. 18 men died. Harlem survived, thrived, continued operating without significant outside interference for 3 decades. That was the trade. 1 brother for 18 enemies. 1 funeral for 30 years of peace. Cold calculation. Yes. Heartless, maybe. Effective, absolutely. This story is not about right or wrong. It is about power. How it works. How it gets established. How it gets maintained. How one man in 1955 figured out that the most effective violence is the kind you only have to use once because everyone remembers it forever. In this world, when family gets touched, you have a choice. React immediately with emotion and start a war that never ends, or react carefully with calculation and end it so completely that nobody tries again. Bumpy Johnson chose calculation, chose patience, chose 18 locked rooms over 18 public executions, chose silence over spectacle, chose permanence over immediacy. And Harlem remembered. New York remembered. Everyone who mattered remembered. So the question remains. For you, for anyone watching this story and understanding what it means, when family gets touched, when the people you protect get hurt, when boundaries get crossed, what do you do? Do you shoot first, start a war, prove you are strong by being loud and violent and immediate? Or do you wait, plan, calculate, win so completely that you never have to fight again? Bumpy Johnson chose the second option, And his choice protected Harlem until the day he died and beyond. That is the lesson. That is the legacy. That is what 18 locked rooms and 30 years of peace taught anyone smart enough to learn it. Real power is not what you destroy. It is what you build with the memory of that destruction. It is making your enemies quit before the fight starts. It is establishing rules so clearly that nobody needs reminding. March 21st, 1955. They clipped Willie Johnson. 17 bullets. Hundreds watched. 3 weeks later, 18 triggermen stopped breathing, and Harlem never got touched again. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. We dig where others will not. Now the question, if they killed your brother in broad daylight, would you shoot first or shoot last? Drop your answer below. Tomorrow, another untold story. Same time. Do not miss it.